everybody, Mark, aka the Nerdy Punk, back again today for a new video. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy 4th of July for those of you who live in the United States. It's the 4th of July holiday for us here, so I hope your holiday is going very well. Today, we are a few days into July, so I figured it would be the appropriate time to recap everything that I watched movie-wise in the month of June. So I have 16 movies for you guys this month. Pretty decent month, not as much as I was hoping for, but 16 movies is nothing to sneeze at. So we're gonna run through these pretty quickly here, and we will start with Dogtooth, originally released in 2009, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. Dogtooth is like Yorgos Lanthimos' first breakthrough movie. I had never seen it before, and it follows a family who keeps their children basically secluded from the rest of the world, and it has a pretty devastating impact on their development and understanding of the world. And that's basically some crazy shit ensues from there, as you'd expect with Lanthimos. If you like Yorgos Lanthimos, if you've seen like The Lobster or The Killing of a Sacred Deer, it's very reminiscent of those two. If you like those two movies, you're gonna really like this one. It's not really going to win over anybody who's not completely sold on Yorgos' style, but I think for what it was, you know, his first kind of internationally breakthrough movie, I think it was pretty good. It did that, but it's definitely not one of my favorites of his. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. And I kind of watched this one, of course, in preparation for Kinds of Kindness, which we will talk about towards the end of this list here. All right, next movie, I watched Tangerine from 2015, directed by Sean Baker, and I finally cracked open this Blu-ray copy. I ordered this, I think after I had watched Red Rocket, which is his most recent film, prior to the one that's coming out this year. But I really loved that film, so I wanted more Sean Baker, and heard really good things about this one. This follows a couple of transgender prostitutes in Los Angeles, and it basically follows them on a day in their life, and some pretty wild stuff happens. It's shot all on an iPhone 4, I believe, or a few iPhone 4s, so it's very stylistically bold, I guess. It's very colorful, very bright. The yellow hue is just all throughout this movie, and once you adjust to it, I think it's pretty good. It obviously takes a little bit to adjust to, but the types of stories that Sean Baker tells, you know, that feel very grounded and kind of about the types of people that society likes to push to the side, and I really like how he explores the lives of these people, and this is no exception with this film. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed Tangerine. Next one was my first trip to the theater of the month, and that was to see Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, of course released in 2024, directed by George Miller. If you want my detailed thoughts on this movie, I did a movie review for it, so go find that video on the channel. To make long story short, I enjoyed the film. I thought it was pretty good. I liked the action sequences. Was it the greatest thing I've ever seen? No, but I found it an enjoyable time at the movie theater. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Next up, finally dove into a Lionsgate Steelbook this month, and that is Apocalypse Now. I have this gorgeous Lionsgate Steelbook release. It's a phenomenal release for a phenomenal movie. So I had never checked this one out before. I know it's a classic, but for whatever reason, I didn't watch it, growing up, and it's pretty intense, so I wouldn't have watched it as a child, and I just put it off for so many years, so I finally watched this one, and I understand what the hype is about, 1000%. This was a phenomenal movie. It's got a great performance from Martin Sheen, who it basically follows his character, who is a soldier in the Vietnam War, and he's sent to track down a mysterious colonel in the U.S. Army and kill him. So it's a very interesting premise, and Coppola, I think, obviously does something super special here. I know this movie was notoriously difficult to make, but the end product was well worth it. I think one of the best war films of all time right here, Apocalypse Now. Crossing another classic off the list that I had to watch. Next one, I don't have a physical copy of this one. I streamed The Hangover from 2009, directed by Todd Phillips. If I had to kind of pick what are my top 5 most watched movies of all time, The Hangover would be close. My opinion of it has definitely gone down over the years. When I first watched this, so this movie came out when I was 13 years old. I can't remember if I watched it when it came out or if it was maybe a year or two later. But obviously, as a teenage boy, this was the type of movie that I loved. The comedy, was right up my alley. I had really, never seen a movie like that because I had grown up in such a sheltered household. So for me, it was kind of new and exciting. Now, the comedy of The Hangover feels very stale, but I still enjoy the film. I still find it funny all these years later. So, my opinion, it's not as amazing as it used to be, but it's still an enjoyable comedy. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, and I will continue to rewatch it every once in a while over the years. Next one that I watched, I actually checked this one out on the Criterion channel. And this is The Birdcage from 1996, directed by Mike Nichols. This movie, it stars Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, and a couple other relatively famous actors and actresses that I can't think of at the moment. But it basically follows Robin Williams and Nathan Lane are a couple, and they're trying to pretend to be straight because Robin Williams' son is getting married to a woman who has very conservative parents. So it's a comedy, but it also has a lot of kind of dark drama aspects to it as well. The pluses of this movie, I loved Robin Williams' performance as well as Nathan Lane. I thought they were both fantastic. The movie was very funny. I did enjoy that. But there were some extremely unlikable and at times unbelievable characters in the film, most notably the son character. I don't remember his name offhand, but the Robin Williams' son in the movie was incredibly annoying and unlikable throughout the film, to a point where I don't think it really served the story that much. I think it kind of ruined the story for me, but I did enjoy the film overall. And the positives outweigh the bad, so I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. Next movie, one of my favorites to rewatch during the summertime, The Nice Guys from 2016, directed by Shane Black. This is seriously one of the most underrated movies to come out in the mainstream studios in the past 10 years. This is a phenomenal comedy. It's written so well. It's got amazing performances here from Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, who basically play these private detectives in early 1970s, I think, Los Angeles. And it really does a great job of setting that scene, makes you feel pretty immersed in the movie. But it's just a fun movie. It's funny. It's really, really funny, really hilarious. The writing is fantastic. And these performances by these two guys, especially Ryan Gosling. This is when we first kind of got that glimpse that Gosling could be a very good comedic actor, which I think he has lived up to with Barbie and The Fall Guy most recently. I think this is where we kind of see the origin of that. He's always had a lot of comedic talent, and this is definitely worthy of it. I love this movie. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. Highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. Next up, I thought this was gonna be a good double feature with The Nice Guys. I watched Inherent Vice, which basically have very similar premises. Los Angeles, private detective, early 1970s, very similar premise and setting, but a completely different tone. Basically, this one leans heavy into the kind of poetic nature of script writing. It's very poetic to the point where it can at times be annoying. It definitely leads heavy into the psychedelia and drug use of the time. Marijuana plays a pretty heavy role in this movie. So I don't know if it's a plus or a negative to watch this movie while you're partaking in the devil's lettuce, but nonetheless, it can kind of feel mind-bending regardless. I think it's a movie that is going to have you thinking about it for a little while. I loved Joaquin Phoenix's performance. I thought it was fantastic. The mood that the movie set was fantastic. I just kind of wanted a little bit more from it, and I wanted it to be a little bit more clear rather than, confusing at times. So I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. Not my favorite PTA film, but a solid one for sure. And I don't think it's his worst. Next up, one of my all-time favorite movies, The Big Lebowski. I love this movie. This is my favorite comedy of all time, I believe. And I rewatch it at least once, usually twice a year, maybe even more than that. I could watch this movie probably every month and love it. So I'm not really going to drone on too much about it, but I just adore the style of the movie. I love the characters. The script is so funny. John Goodman's character has some of the most iconic and hilarious lines of all time. This is not Nom, it's bowling, there are rules. One of the greatest comedic lines of all time. I love this movie so much, and it's my favorite Coen Brothers movie, one of my top 10 favorites of all time. So happy to rewatch this one this month. It is a 5 out of 5. Perfect film. Next one up here, Next Goal Wins from 2023, directed by Taika Waititi. This follows a character played by, who's the actor? Michael Fassbender. Forgot for a moment there. He plays, I believe, an English soccer coach who is hired to coach the American Samoa national soccer team, who is one of the worst soccer teams in the world. And it's a comedy. It's a comedy that I didn't really find to be that funny. There's a weird transphobic plot line in it too that was not funny or added anything to the story. And from what I can tell, not historically accurate to the real person who was portrayed in the movie. So it's just so many mind-boggling choices in this movie. I think either Taika Waititi has incredibly lost it, or I just don't understand his comedy, because I just didn't really like this movie, and it kind of soured me on the director as a whole. I'll probably still check out whatever he does next, but I'm definitely not excited to see his films anymore, which is kind of disappointing. I gave this one a 2 out of 5. Just was not feeling it at all. Next one, dipped into the Criterion Collection, a little preview for Criterion Month, but during the heat wave, the most recent heat wave that we dealt with, I felt in the mood to watch Do the Right Thing, which of course takes place in the heat wave. I talked a little bit about this movie in my top 10 summer movies video, and this is one of my favorites to watch in the summer, especially around that heat wave time, because it really kind of immerses you into the film. Just an incredible film. Has so much to say about society and race relations and how we treat one another, but also, human psychology, music, religion, expression. It's got basically everything in there, and it's funny as well. So I really love this movie. Do the Right Thing, 5 out of 5 from Spike Lee. Next up here, a couple, actually mostly new releases here as we round out the list. Next movie is Hitman from 2024, directed by Richard Linklater. This movie is the one that stars Glenn Powell on Netflix. It was recently released to Netflix. This movie, I remember, when it was first announced, I think last year, people started seeing it in film festivals. People were kind of ranting and raving about it, and I was excited because I'm somewhat a Linklater fan. I really love Dazed and Confused, but I haven't really got into him as a director as a whole. But I just really wasn't feeling this movie. I thought, at times it was funny, at times it did the job that it was supposed to do, but then also at times I found it kind of boring. I found the characters to be unlikable at times. I didn't find them to be, perfectly funny, consistently funny throughout the movie. And at times I felt it was, asking me to do too many mental gymnastics to try to explain the movie. There were so many unbelievable moments and decisions that just I couldn't reconcile with the movie. I know it's a comedy, but I still couldn't reconcile it, and I just wasn't super impressed. I was disappointed with this one for sure. I gave it a 3 out of 5. The next one, we did a little double feature, a little Netflix streaming, and I watched Welcome to Marvin from 2018, directed by Robert Zemeckis. This movie, I thought, had some interesting things to say about trauma and PTSD and addiction, and just mental illness in general. But I also found it incredibly weird and bizarre, and not in a good way, in an off-putting kind of way. Steve Carell does some decent things here with his performance, but I just think the overall script, I know it was based on a real story. I know there were differences between the real story and the script. So it was just, there's so many odd decisions from what I hear about this movie. And I just overall found this to be an incredible mixed bag. Moments that I really liked, a lot of moments that I really didn't. So I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5. Next one, my, I believe, second trip to the theater of the month, and that was to see The Watchers from 2024, directed by Ishana Night Shyamalan, who is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. And it definitely, the movie has similar vibes to an M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's also incredibly disappointing. I think M. Night Shyamalan is the most hit or miss director of all time. I'm hoping that his daughter will have some hits, but this was definitely a miss. I wasn't a big fan of the movie. There were some things that I liked about it. It wasn't completely an awful experience. There were things that I enjoyed. I think there really is probably a good movie in there. I think the story has enough intrigue behind it. But there were also so many unbelievable moments that I couldn't reconcile. So many things that didn't make sense, and so many missed opportunities in this one. So I gave it a 2 out of 5. And then I finished off the month with a good old-fashioned theater double feature. My friends and I went to see a first movie. We took a dinner break, went right back to the theater to see another movie. So the first one is Kinds of Kindness, of course, from 2024 by Yorgos Lanthimos, and I did in-depth videos for both of these movies. So if you want my full thoughts on Kinds of Kindness, go find that video on the channel. It's literally the second most recent video as you're looking on the channel. I really enjoyed Kinds of Kindness. There were things that I wish it could have done better. I wish it would have kind of hit home the point of the story and what the film was trying to say a little bit more and a little bit more consistently. But overall, I really enjoyed the film. I loved how weird it was, and I love having weird movies in the theater and seeing people to come out to watch them. I think that's just really cool. So I gave that one a 4 out of 5. And then finally with The Bike Riders, a really good drama. I think it executed the drama genre pretty well, but it didn't really have anything super special about it, in my opinion. Some really good performances, a solid story, a couple things with the script that I would have liked to have been done better, but for the most part, really solid drama. I'm sure I'll pick it up on Blu-ray one of these days and maybe, rewatch it every few years or so. It's that type of movie. Not that I'm gonna rewatch every single year, but something that I could see myself rewatching in the future. So it was, enjoyable enough. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. All right, that's going to wrap up my June recap for all the movies that I watched in June of 2024. Go ahead and let me know in the comments down below what you guys checked out this month and what you're looking forward to in July, as we have some pretty big movies hitting the theater. It's going to be a big month for horror in July with Maxine and Longlegs coming out back-to-back weekends. I'm super excited for both of those films. So you'll hopefully see some movie reviews for those on the channel this month. With that being said, I will see you guys later. Have a great 4th of July if you're in the United States, and adios.